to stay in touch with everything happening here at City South. And so if you go to the church website, citysouthchurch.com, there's going to be a tab that you can click and you can sign up for our weekly email. And the cool thing about it is, I think about every Thursday, you get a beautiful handcrafted letter from Pastor Tyson. And he's going to hate that I said that. But I look forward to it. It's like a nice hello, even though I work beside him most of the week. But you can be a part of that too. So go to the church website, sign up for the weekly email, and you will know everything happening from Sunday all the way back to the next, or all the way to the next Sunday. All right? And March 29th is Good Friday. Who's excited for Good Friday? All right, so here's what's happening for Good Friday. We would love for you to sign up, again, on the church website. And we're going to be meeting at separate houses, and we're going to be having pizza as a dinner party for Good Friday, all right? And so make sure you sign up so we know how many pizzas to order. Funny story for you. The reason, not the reason, but my last pastoral job in Winnipeg, I ordered way too much pizza, and I'm in charge of that this year. So either you get the blessing of me making the mistake and ordering double the pizza for the house you go to, or I order the right amount. Let's just pray for the right amount, all right? Because last time I spent way too much money, and they were not happy with me. So sign up so I know how much pizza to order. Invite a friend. We would love to see you on Good Friday. Our next announcement actually doesn't come from me, but it comes from Evie, so I'm going to invite her up and she will tell you what's happening.
Hi. I just want to announce we have a one-day women's retreat coming up on April 27th. So, past years we've often gone away for a whole weekend, which we are still going to do, but it's going to be next year. We're going to kind of go to a model where 1 year is just a one-day Saturday retreat, the next year is a full weekend away. And so this year we're excited. We've rented the Capilano Community Hall just because then we're closer to the river valley. So in our downtime, we're going to pray for good weather, that we can go out and enjoy and be able to go into the river valley and enjoy that time there. So it's just going to be 1 day. It'll be continental breakfast, a session with a wonderful speaker named Lori Harmon. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have Timeless Beauty with Petra Staples and some floral bouquet making with Candace. And you get to take home a bouquet with you and just a closing time. And I think the heart of this is, it's just a time for us to gather as women, to encourage each other, pray with each other, grow together, be challenged together. And so I encourage you, if you are 18 and up, please come. And I know we had, I was talking with Hannah yesterday, I said, Hannah, I need you to challenge me. And I think that is so, I think it's sometimes we need all ages to challenge each other. And so I think that's so important. So I want you to come. It's only 40 bucks. If you're 40
you please come talk to me because we want you to come and invite a friend. There's postcards at the back and I have them on me. Passing them out this morning, but take a couple. Think of who you can invite to this day, who would just need that time and encouragement in their lives. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun day.
Awesome. That sounds like a great event for the women. Men, March 13th, Oilers versus Capitals, Wings at Fargo's. You should be there. That wasn't on the list. I'm sorry, Tyson. But that's what's happening. After Easter, we are having something like small gatherings of people that will spur each other on, right? So just like in Proverbs 27, where it talks about iron sharpening iron, what's going to happen after Easter is we're going to have a small gathering of people sharpening each other, right? So spurring each other on, pushing each other towards the goal of becoming more like Jesus, because that's what we are here at City South, right? We are real people who love Jesus and want to be more like him and introduce people to him. And so that's going to be happening. Please stay in touch for more information on that. And we're so thankful for your faithful giving. If you don't know where to give, there's a station in the back that you can do that. And yeah, we're so thankful for you and your faithfulness and worship in doing that. And so kids, now is your time where you get to go and go to Sunday school, learn about Jesus. And my favorite person's coming up, the guy that I can't, I'm not going to go any further. You're awesome. We're almost matching today, everybody. I called him this morning and I said, what are you wearing? I didn't.
Go sit down.
Okay.
John. All right. I have a confession to make. It has nothing to do with what I'm wearing. But so in our house, I think in a lot of houses, everybody has different roles. In my house, anything medical related, I do nothing. Because I know nothing, and my wife's in healthcare, and so I've chosen to ignore that part of the world. So like the kids know, like if they're hurt, even if mom is away and a kid got hurt, it would be like, can you call mom? Like, because they know dad knows nothing. And so I've pretty much like, yeah, and even if it's me, I just go, honey, what should I do? My tummy's a little upset. Could you help me out? And she'll be like, take this pill or do this, or, that's just how our house operates. The channel of everything physical and medical funnels through Evie. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. It was like new knowledge. It was like a whole new world opened up to me. And I Googled this, obscure body parts that are really important. You might think that's a dangerous thing to Google. The body is fairly fascinating. That's what I discovered. And I want to share just a touch of knowledge with you. So one thing that's on the screen, before I get into my knowledge I shared with you, is near the end of the message, we're going to do a little Q&A. And why we do that here at South is we want opening the scriptures, looking at this to be participatory. It's not just sitting back and, was it entertaining or not, but it's more of a, hey, can we interact and participate and learn together? And so there'll be a point where I say, hey, any questions? And even log in. This time, we usually have South as the word that you put. This Sunday, it's City South, because somebody else took South for this Sunday. Even if you don't want to ask a question, you can vote like questions, and it'll push it up. And so even if you don't have a question asked, but you see that's a good question, I wouldn't mind to answer that, like it, and it'll kind of move it up on the list of as far as ones that we answer. So I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but the uvula. This is how I would describe it. All the medical people are mocking and laughing at me. I actually went to YouTube and listened to a pronunciation of the word, and I think I still got it wrong. All right, back of your throat, the punching bag. Everybody know what I'm talking about? A little thing that hangs, it's actually a gland. Did you know it's a gland that hangs back there? And that gland produces saliva. This is what I didn't realize. Do you know how important saliva is? Saliva is like super important. This is not a shocker probably, but it helps lubricate the food to get down so it's not all scratchy. Sometimes you hit a chip and you feel it scratching all the way down. Like it helps to counter that experience. Not a pleasant experience. Did you know that saliva actually helps to activate your taste buds? So if you had no saliva, the taste of your food would drastically change in a negative direction. But here's the thing that shocked me. Saliva helps to break down food. So if you had no saliva, or maybe somebody's body doesn't produce a lot of saliva, chances are lots of cavities. Because no matter how good you brush, and I'm told I'm supposed to floss every day. I do the odd time. The little food particles in your teeth and stuff like that, the saliva helps break that down. And so in my vast research on saliva, somewhat of a saliva expert now, like the saliva is helping those little particles that would be left in your teeth, it's helping to break that down and kind of go through your system. So that if you had no saliva, it wouldn't break down, and then as we know, food particles in your teeth is a recipe for disaster. And so it actually talked about how some people, their bodies just don't naturally produce enough saliva, and they actually have teeth issues, lots of cavities, lots of problem with their teeth. So that little gland that hangs, the punching bag in the back of your throat, could you imagine if you said, yeah, I don't need that? You would have no teeth. It would be like a legitimate direct cause and effect. It does have something to do with something. I promise you. We've been in this series where we've just been slowly working our way through 1 Corinthians. And 1 Corinthians is Paul, who started this church, and he's writing a letter to this church. And this church is in some ways unique, in some ways like any other church. It's a diverse group of people. You have wealthy people, you have poor people, you have free people, you have slaves. You have all different racial backgrounds, because Corinth, the city that this church was in, was a pretty diverse place that was on the ocean, so there's a lot of trade going through it. The Canadian example or equivalent I gave was, think of a Vancouver. And all of this is happening in this church. And we're in chapter 12, and Paul says this: the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. So it is with the body of Christ. When he says the body of Christ, he's talking about the church, us. Some of us are Jews, some of us are Gentiles, some of us are slaves, some of us are free, but we have all been baptized into one body by one Spirit, and we all share the same Spirit. Yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I am not part of the body because I am not a hand, that does not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, I'm not part of the body because I'm not an eye, would that make it any less a part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, how would you hear? Or if the whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? So Paul's using this analogy of our physical bodies, and he's talking about the church. And he's saying, hey, this diversity, it's good. And we can look at that and be like, yeah, if everybody was the same, that would be a bad thing. And it's a pretty obvious analogy, I think, when we look at that. But I want to share just a couple of things that maybe will take it down a layer or two for you. See, when we read this, we read it through our lens of it's 2024. We know about modern medicine. We know about this gland hanging in the back of our throat and the saliva that it produces and how important saliva is. Or if you didn't know that, you now know that. You're welcome. But it's helpful when we read a passage of Scripture to try to put ourselves into their context, because different time periods, different cultures see things differently. I remember when I was in college and a professor, this was a while ago, it was the late 90s, and thank you, appreciate that. It was the late 90s, and I remember my professor going, when I hear one of you say wicked, that means something different than when my dad used the word wicked. When you say wicked, you mean like awesome, positive, When my dad said wicked, he meant terrible, evil. Same word, different meaning for different times. It's the same thing with Scripture. So I just want to share a few things with you. This is a Middle Eastern culture, Corinth. They saw their body a little differently than we see our body. In this sense, feet were the most dishonorable part of your body. They were dirty. They were, think desert region, lots of dust, so they're always dirty. But your feet were just terrible. So I reckon this is probably bad manners. You can judge me if you want. But I like putting my feet up. So in our family room, we have an ottoman. My feet are often always up there. In our living room, there's a coffee table. My feet are often up on the coffee table. Probably not good. If I'm at the office, I'm trying to, we get this bookshelf or a chair, I'm trying to put a foot up there. I like to put my feet up. I don't know why. Habit, just something I do. In this day and age, you would never do that. It's kind of bad manners, I guess. In my own house, I'm like, I can do it. It's my house, I can do what I want. You wouldn't even do that in your own house in this culture because your feet were low. They were dishonorable. They were despicable. You didn't want to do this. And you can see that still today in some cultures. I was reading about this, and I found this fascinating because I didn't think of it. But they were talking about when the U.S. were coming in Iraq, and they went into Baghdad, and Saddam Hussein was being overthrown. And then you start to see the people, and they're pulling down the statues of Saddam Hussein, the author was talking about. And he was trying to describe just some of these cultural nuances that have stayed the same, especially in the Middle Eastern region. And they said when the statue came down, you saw all these men take off their sandals, their shoes, and they started hitting the statue with their shoes. They're not breaking it. It's not a hammer. It's not another big rock. What they were doing was dishonoring the statue, saying, like, we don't like this guy. We want to be disrespectful. We want to dishonor him. And so they're hitting that statue with their shoes. That kind of mindset was back when Paul was writing. So when he talks about feet, it's like, this is like low, dishonorable, despicable. Do we have any I'm left-handed. Is there any wonderful left-handed? Man, here, all my favorite people putting up their hands. You're left-handed, John? Oh. I take that last statement back. No, I'm joking. So in this culture, your left hand was a bit better than your feet, but just a bit better. But your right hand was an honorable hand. And so you do things for other people with your right hand, not your left hand. Probably the most honored part of your body were your eyes. This was a very honored part of bodies, and so you would talk about somebody's eyes, or you would look into somebody's eyes. The eyes were kind of like this honored part of the body. Just to give you an example, the feet, people like to trash talk and diss. My boys like to trash talk me, mostly about my weight. And the Bible has like trash talking in it. It's pretty awesome when you understand this thing about the feet. And so here's a psalm, and it's talking about different nations, and it's kind of trying to throw some shade. Is that the young ones say these days? Throw some shade on some nations? Because I'm pretty cool. I dress like John. Thank you, Michael. All right, so here's Psalm 60, and I'm just using this example to show this idea of feet. But Moab, my wash basin, will become my servant, and I will wipe my feet on Edom and shout in triumph over Philistia. And this is like saying, like, man, Edom, you are terrible, you're pathetic. When we understand how feet are viewed, this makes it even more kind of like, oh, that's not good for them. So what I want us to do is that second paragraph, Psalm 14. I'm going to read it again, but this knowledge of feet being low, left hand lower than the right hand, the eyes being the most kind of honored part of your body, I'm going to read it again. And just that cultural nuance, I want to see if maybe it pops a little bit more for you. Yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I'm not part of the body because I am not a hand, that does not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, I am not a part of the body because I'm not an eye, would it make it any less a part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, how would you hear? Or if the whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? This is my question to you. If someone asks you, what part of the body are you? What would be your honest answer? Would you be like, oh, I'm an eye? Or would your answer be more like, I'm probably a foot? How do you rank yourself? How do you see yourself? And especially if you see yourself as a foot or maybe a left hand, you can be like, you know what? I don't need any of you because I'm no good for you. I'm going to keep my distance because I'm just going to bring you down. I'm just going to pull you down to kind of the foot level. So how would you see yourself? Like, what part of the body would you see yourself? And then Paul's continuing on this train of thought, and he says this, but our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where he wants it. I like that verse. God has put each part just where he wants it. This forces you in one of two ways of thoughts, in my opinion. You have to either believe God and what God says, or you believe yourself in a way you just kind of pat God on the head and said, oh, you're nice, but you believe yourself more. This is what I mean by that. You, who you are, your history, your giftings, your temperament, this moment in history that you've been placed in, that you find yourself in Edmonton, here in these seats right now. God has put each of you just where he wants you. So either you believe that everything about you is just how God wanted it, or maybe you believe the stories you tell yourself. I'm no good. If only this happened. If only this didn't happen, my story. Then maybe I could be used by God. That's believing yourself and kind of saying, oh, God, you're nice. Or you could say, man, this part of my story, it's been hard, difficult, lots of tears, some pain. And this part of my story, I can see some pauses in that. And being in this moment, in this city, or this time, there's pauses, there's negatives. But I know that God has orchestrated this and put me where I am. Verse 19, how strange a body would be if it had only one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. Remember the eye higher, the hand lower? I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, remember that ranking again? I don't need you. In fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. It's interesting here, because what Paul's speaking against, what Paul's saying is missing the mark, is this attitude, mindset of, I don't need you. It's not, I'm better than you, which we'd call pride. It's, I don't need you. Self-sufficiency. Just do it on your own. I can take care of myself. I don't need anybody. I'll take care of myself. I don't need you. I got this. I don't need you. The problem is, it's not how you were created. It's not how I was created. If you go back to the beginning of time, before there was anything, you have God who is three persons, Father, Son, and Spirit are all together. What is that? It's community, it's relationship, intermingling together. And then when he starts to create humans, he's like, man, I don't want you to be alone. Community, integration. And then when God decides to move in his story, it's like a nation, a people group working together. And then it's a church, a body working together, interdependent, needing each other. You were created to crave and want community and interconnectedness, and to want to be kind of that push and pull of otherness. That's in the fabric of your being, that is written into you. Every human being. This is why the worst punishment is what? Being in isolation. This is part of why, like, all that isolation we had in COVID was so hard. Why? Because we were created for community. And so, when we say, hey, I don't need you, we might not say those words, but our attitude is like, I'm going to keep you at arm's length. So it might be like, I'm hurting, but I'm going to keep you at arm's length because I don't need you, or I don't want to burden you. Or our attitude might be like, I've been hurt in the past and I don't want to be hurt again. So I don't need you. I'm going to keep you at arm's length because I don't want to experience that hurt again. Or, let's be honest, in the body, you might be an eye. And you might be like, I don't need you because I kind of can do this on my own. Even this, like, what God's calling me to do, like, I don't need you. I can do this on my own. Sharing faith, becoming more like Jesus, I don't need you. And this was the dynamic in this church. You had the rich, you had the poor, you had the people that would be really gifted, all these spiritual gifts, and those that weren't. And Paul's talking about this and saying, you need each and every one of you. You collectively working together are the body. And the eye needs the feet because some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. Like a gland that produces saliva. I don't think any of you are like, I want to be that. But if you remove it, man, think of your body. Teeth falling out, food hurting as it goes down, tastes terrible. You start to see how important. And so what Paul is saying is you were created to reach out and to reach up. You're created to be in this relationship with each other. The church, the community is supposed to be working together in relationship with each other, and you're created to be in relationship with God. It's a both end. It's not just a one way, I'm going to reach up to God and I don't need anybody else. And you can't be trying to connect with others and not be in relationship with God. It's a reaching both ways. But I find a lot of people are like, have this spirit of I don't need you for two reasons. The first one is either from hurt or low self-esteem, where they're like, I got nothing to offer, or I don't want to be hurt again, so I'm just going to keep my distance. I'm not going to interact with anybody. I call it the kind of turtling up. We have this tortoise in our house. It's about this big. And every once in a while we let him out and walk around, and we forget about him walking around, and then we kick him. Because as you're walking, poof, and we have hardwood floors, so and when you kick him, he's like, head, feet, everything just into that shell. And it's literally like a little Mario game, and the shell goes spinning across the floor. And people that are like this, I say that's them. They turtle up, suck in and stuff. And they're like, I'm just going to go in my hard shell because I don't want to get hurt. Or I'm a foot and you don't want me around. You don't need me. And so I'm just going to go in my shell. Be safe. And Paul is saying two things. Man, you're missing out what you're created for. And you are needed. Because if we don't have the whole body, it ain't working. So I find that's one group of people that kind of have that posture of like, I don't need you. It's from a kind of a negative sense of looking at themselves. And then I find the other group of people that say, I don't need you, it's coming from a posture of like, I'm gifted, I'm talented, I can do this. Like, I don't need you because I'm pretty beautiful eyes. Like bright blue. When my eyes walk in a room, it lights it up. So I don't need you. And Paul's saying, wow, as awesome as that is, you do. Because if everybody was an eye, it'd be terrible. And it's the synergy of the body working together. And so what Paul's saying is everybody needs to be reaching out to each other, working together. Oh, you're a foot or you're a gland in the back of the throat. We need you. Oh, you're an eye or a right hand. We need you. And as we reach out to each other and are working together, we're reaching up to God and worshiping Him and seeing what He's asking the body to do. And that becomes what a beautiful Jesus-following community can look like. That's what the church at its best is supposed to be. And so when you say, I don't need you, Paul is saying, we need everyone. We need each other. You do need us, and we need you. So, John, is there any questions?
Yes.
All right, let's turn John's mic on there, and so I can hear him good.
All right. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So
And
first,
you look fantastic, by the way.
thanks. It's because we called each other this morning. All right, first
Did
question.
not.
First question. If we aim to be diverse as a church, as Paul suggests, but also strive to be like Jesus, wouldn't that eliminate diversity or make us all the same?
John, pick easier questions. No. So probably one way I describe this is there's a difference between uniformity and unity. Uniformity is we're all the same. We all wear, these nice beige or tan jackets. No, but uniformity would be like we all think the same way, we vote the same way, we have all the, uniformity is we're all exactly the same. The most extreme example of this, if you're a sci-fi fan, Star Trek, the Borg, it's just like you're all exactly the same. Unity is a diverse group all moving to the same goal. And that's what this is talking about is in our diversity, let's move to the same goal of seeing people come to Jesus and become more like Jesus. And so we will have that diversity. Some of us cannot sing, cannot know anything about music. That would be me. I'm offended, but the bands have never asked me to join them on the stage during this. Yeah. Okay, let me rephrase that. When I get invited, it's in a mocking, snickering way to come up on the stage. I brought out a tambourine once while they're practicing and tried to join them, and then I'm shooed away. That's not my gifting. And some of you, some of you are amazing at, you can talk to someone and you can like look into their eyes and be focused and hear them. Not just hear the words that are coming out of my mouth, but hear them like at their heart level. And you make that person feel like they're seen and heard and cared for. And it's not an act for you. Like you genuinely in that moment, you're all in with them. And you want to hear them and you want to care for them. That's a gift. And you can get frustrated, like, why isn't everybody like that? Because some people don't have a heart and are unmusical. I have a heart. It's just 3 sizes too small. So we can all be diverse in our giftings, right? We can all be different. And instead of being like, oh, I'm terrible because I don't have the gifting, I can't play guitar like Emmett can, and oh, it's terrible. I can be like, oh, I'm going to celebrate in how God's gifted me. And the unity is striving to what Jesus has called us. So unity does not mean that we're all exactly the same. That's uniformity. Unity is we're all striving to the same thing, to be the body that is doing what Jesus has called us to do. Whoever asked that, I hope that kind of helps answer it. Got another one, John?
Yes. How do we practically become active parts of the body in an apathetic and busy North American culture?
Okay, here's my not so nice answer. What you love is what you do. If your kid was dying, this is a ridiculous example. If your kid was dying and the doctor said, if you run a marathon tomorrow, your kid will live. You guys will strap on your running shoes and run a marathon, even if it killed you, right? Because you love your kid. Now, if I said, hey, who wants to come run a marathon with me tomorrow for fun? I wouldn't do it, actually. I would just, if you showed up, I'd be like, I was actually joking. Oh man, now I gotta run. I think no one would be like, oh yeah, marathon, awesome. See, it's not the act of the marathon, it's the act of your love. I will run that marathon if it kills me for my kid because I love my kid more than I love myself. So, apathy, busyness, all that kind of stuff, you do what you love. So how you spend your time, someone would be, oh, then you love your job. Well, maybe your job is for, you do your job for your family, and so you're doing it out of a love for your family. It's not always a direct correlation of I'm doing this because I love this. There might be an underlying thing behind it. So, first part of that question was how do you serve in the church and stuff like that?
Yeah, how do we practically become active parts of the body?
Active parts of the body. So I want to say 2 things about that. My hope is as you fall more and more in love with Jesus, you'd want to become more and more an active part of his body, the church. And when I say his body, the church, I do not mean Sunday mornings here, let's have a table out there and get you to sign up for things. Awesome. If you want to help, Sunday morning, that's great. If you are musical and you want to be part of this, I'll be the first one to say, hey, that'd be awesome. Or, another gifting that you have, you want to part. But the body is not, Sunday mornings is the gathering of the body, the gathering of the church to worship, to encourage, to equip. And then the church, the body gets sent. It goes to wherever you work, wherever you live. church is not Sunday morning. The body's not Sunday morning. The body of the church is you. And there's this rhythm of gathering and going, gathering and going. So my prayer all week is that as you gathered this morning, you're able to enter into corporate worship. There's a mystery to it. I can't describe it to you, but there's something powerful about corporate worship. I hope that you're encouraged. If you came in and you had a tough week, or you came in and you're carrying a heavy load over weeks or months or years, that there's a little bit of encouragement, whether through somebody else or whether through the Holy Spirit. And then I hope there's a little bit of equipping. In other words, that when you go, you feel like, okay, maybe a tool in my toolbox got sharpened a little. Or maybe I got a new tool put in my toolbox, like saliva. You got a new tool put in your toolbox. And so that's the equipping part. And then you go. And so the church is not just about Sunday morning. The body and being serving effective is, do you love, or are you falling more in love with what Jesus is doing here, but what Jesus is doing at your school, what Jesus is doing at your workplace, what Jesus is doing amongst your neighbors where you live? And as you go into all those areas that you were just specifically put with your history, your gifting, your nuance of who you are, at this time, at this place, as God puts you there, can you be like, okay, I'm going to be the body, I'm going to be the church here. And how can I serve here? And my prayer is, as Jesus gets more and more of your love, your heart, that would become more and more natural. And so it's not about like, oh, I need more time to do this. It's, hey, as I'm doing these things, how can I see what Jesus is doing and partner with him? So it's not about, hey, can you serve this many hours a week? Apathy is probably, I think, a bigger reality than busyness. And I would just say, with apathy, I can tell you what you love by looking at what you do. And so my question is, what do you love? Who do you love? Should we do one more? Yeah? Okay. One more. Last one.
So this is in reference to the feet being the lowest of in your
Yeah, culturally
explaining
back
of it,
then.
yeah, in the culture. So is this why it was such a big deal when Jesus washed the feet of others or his disciples?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't it bring that a little bit more context and texture to that story? So if you're not familiar, there's a story where Jesus, he goes and he starts washing his followers' feet. And this was a common custom when you go to someone's house. We would say if someone came to our house, we'd take their jackets, hang it up for them. And then before we maybe say, oh, our bathroom is over here if you want to wash your hands. That might be some cultural things we would do. In that culture, someone come into your house and be like, oh, hey, can I wash your feet? Because desert, sandals, your feet just get really dirty all the time there. And you'd have like a servant or somebody and here's Jesus washing his disciples' feet. And this just kind of adds another kind of texture to that story when you understand just some of the cultural realities. So yeah, it's just like he was lowering himself, serving others. Not, it's that Philippians 2 passage where Jesus did not, lord himself over others, but he lowered himself to serve others, and we should do likewise. So I feel I'm human, so I'm far from perfect and fail at this often. But I think Christian leaders that lord power over others is the most un-Jesus-like and downright evil. Because the example Jesus set was to serve. And so to me, the greatest example of leadership in our realm, in the church realm, is to serve. So, to land the plane on this message is, how will you be the body this week? As you go from here. And then if you come back next Sunday and we gather, but as you, the church, go, I would encourage you to process, instead of having a posture of, I don't need you, from either an attitude of like, I don't need you because I'm pretty awesome, like I got all these giftings, or I don't need you because I don't think you need me because I'm like a foot. Instead of that posture, can we have a posture this week of reaching out to each other, seeing the interconnectedness of like, I need each and every one of you. And this sounds arrogant, but I don't mean it in that spirit. You need me. We need each other. And when you remove yourself, you are hurting yourself because you're created for community, but you're also hurting the body. And no matter where you see yourself in that body, you're valued and you're needed. And so how this week can you reach out in that way of being the body, of being the church? And how can you reach up and be in that relationship with Jesus, who's the head of the body? And so I want to encourage you to do that, to reach out and reach up, not to remove yourself, not to turtle up. So Jesus, I thank you that you didn't call us to be isolated and to be lonely and to be on our own and to just, kind of pull up our socks and do it on our own, but that you've called us to be in community, to be the body, to be interconnected, to lean in on each other, to use the giftings of others and to augment the weaknesses of some. And then help us to reach up to you, to be in constant relationship with you, to fall more and more in love with you. And so I thank you that we have the opportunity to be the body in its most healthy way. And so help us to accomplish that. Amen. Amen. Just before we go, one little thing to have you pray about, please pray about this. We last Sunday we did this service where we have a team going to Africa, and we were celebrating and hearing stories, and we prayed for them as kind of a sending off. And it's not going as planned. That'd be a good thing. Here's the short story, is we sent visas in long time ago, applications for visa a long time ago. We're going to the DRC in Africa, and we still have not received those visas. The team's supposed to leave Friday night. So if we don't have the visas by Thursday, just the cancellation policy, I do 24 hours in advance. And then there'd be a lot of rescheduling. So, bureaucracy and paper and all those beautiful things. If you just every once in a while wanted to pray that process, sped up and did well, that would be appreciated. And if I'm here on Sunday, we didn't go. So you should come next Sunday just to see if I'm here. It'll be a mystery. We always say there's coffee, there's tea, especially this morning on this message. Like have a good conversation, rich conversation with a few people, and we'll see you next Sunday. Maybe I'll see you next Sunday. We'll see.